You will not surely die. Why death may not be so final in the future, says NBC rather. Transhumanists envision several possible avenues to immortality. This one's from the Wall Street Journal. Nanorobots could live inside our cells and constantly repair damage. So that would be radical life extension. Halting aging in its tracks with little robots repairing us. Genetic engineering could eliminate the mechanisms that cause us to age in the first place. Radical life extension technologies. Such technologies are still out of reach, but transhumanists believe we will be able to master them sooner than most people think with the help of superpowered artificial intelligence. So that's one thing. This is radical life extension where we can use technology to keep us human and improve and lengthen our lifespan. But there's another branch of transhumanism altogether, and it's called looking forward. This is a real headline. Looking forward to the end of humanity. They call it eternal life through technology. You will not surely die. Immortality through advanced technology. Let's read it. Ultimately, however, the hope of most transhumanists is that we won't just use computers to repair cell damage and improve and lengthen our lives, but we will become computers. Today, cognitive scientists often compare the brain to hardware and the mind to the software that it runs on. But a software program is just information. So they're reducing the human mind to information once again. Now, it's more than that. It's vast and wide and deep and spiritual and transcendent. The idea of convictions, beliefs, motive, intent, loyalty, love, it all occurs actually in the mind. The heart is just metaphorical when we know the heart just beats. But the concept of our mind, they want to reduce here. And in principle, they say, there's no reason why the information of consciousness has to be encoded on neurons. I mean, God's creation of our biological reality, the information of consciousness can be encoded on something else other than neurons, they said. So what would that be? Well, that would be silicon, that would be computer, that would be the cloud. You can have your consciousness encoded onto computer interface. Now, well, that's the transhumanist dream, because it's an ambitious effort right now to map the neural pathways that underlie human brain functions. If those pathways could be completely mapped and translated into digital zeros and ones, the data could be uploaded to a computer where it could survive indefinitely. This is what they call uploading your consciousness. Now, that phrase is ridiculous, of course, because human consciousness exists within the confines of our biological neurons, the brain God gave to us. But they say all we are is a bunch of data. Every feeling, every thought, every experience, every memory, every skill, every personality trait, if we can map that out, identify it within the brain, then we can just cut and paste it to a computer. And your brain lives on. Your conscious, not your brain. They call it your consciousness. Now, that's a spiritual term. That's a philosophical term. That has creator and religious implications to it. You can't cut and paste that in reality. You can fake it. You can have a mirror image of it, but it's not the real thing. Could we really live forever as a chatbot or a hologram? CNET News asked. Virtual reality, robots, chatbots, and holograms could allow us to, they call it, exist perpetually. Whether we should choose the option is a different story. You're not existing perpetually, right? I mean, for example, if you had a video, you have videos of somebody who's passed away, right? You play that video, they're not still existing on that video, but it's a mirror image. It's the same thing. Well, that's just one, episode of what they were doing on that day and in that place that you have recorded. But if you have all the data of everything they've ever done and said, you get their voice print analysis, you get their facial expressions, you get their emotional reactions, and you can have not just a video of them, but you could have an impersonation completely. And they're already actually doing this. They're saying, I want the CGI version of myself to go beyond my life. Hollywood actors are literally writing wills on who will control their hologram, their counterfeit, their doppelganger, their person who is not them, but is the data of them imprinted onto this holographic figure. So this is what Harari is talking about when he says we will have eternal life. You're going to see this clip. He already said we will become gods because we're merging with intelligence and abilities beyond and that transcend where we are. We're going to come back to that theme. But they're saying right now, eternal life on this earth, just like the lie that the serpent gave to Eve in the garden.
Everything that the old religions promised, happiness and justice and even eternal life, but here on earth, with the help of technology, and not after death, with the help of some supernatural being.
I think technology is very predictable, and it's quite easy to make a timeline and get it right within a few years, certainly even at the 15, 20-year horizon. At the moment, we can already see how we're making primitive links to the nervous system. A few people with arms chopped off in accidents can now get links to robotic limbs, for example. We're doing very simple stuff. You can draw timelines as to how this gradually gets closer and closer into the brain. IBM have just announced a brain chip. They're doing neural network type stuff and all sorts of other things. We're seeing progress coming, and we can see where that progress is going, and you can see roughly how fast it's getting there. So you can make predictions on the timelines as well. The reason I don't normally talk about 50 years hence is because when you go that far ahead, you're talking about immortality technology and stuff which you really associate with, something beyond the other side of Star Trek. That's how fast things are moving, and people then think you're just being wacky. But really, in the 50-year time frame, you can put an end to death. You can just download your entire mind onto a computer, store it forever. That's 50 years hence. If you just want to connect your nervous system and store sensations, you can do that in a 20 or 25-year time frame. That's much, much easier.
So there you heard from a few different perspectives, immortality and eternal life on this earth, said Harari, and then Ian Pearson talking about digital immortality. Also, Ray Kurzweil. Listen to him on this.
I'm Ray Kurzweil. I'm an inventor, author, and futurist, and I invite you to join me at Global Future 2045, which will be a fabulous Congress to explore the brilliant future ahead. Well, we're going to become increasingly non-biological to the point where the non-biological part predominates and the biological part is not that important anymore. In fact, the non-biological part, the machine part, will be so powerful it can completely model and understand the biological part. So even if that biological part went away, it wouldn't make any difference because the non-biological part already understood it completely. We'll also have non-biological bodies. We can create bodies with nanotechnology. We can create virtual bodies in virtual reality. The virtual reality will be as realistic as real reality. The virtual bodies will be as detailed and convincing as real bodies. We'll have different ways we can create bodies. We do need a body. Our intelligence is directed towards a body, but it doesn't have to be this frail biological body that's subject to all kinds of failure modes. Well, I think we'll have a choice of bodies. We'll certainly be routinely changing our apparent body in virtual reality. So today you can have a different body in something like Second Life, but it's just a picture on the screen. Although research has shown that people actually begin to subjectively identify with their avatar But in the future, it's not going to be a little picture in a virtual environment you're looking at. It'll feel like this is your body and you're in that environment, and that your body is the virtual body, and it can be as realistic as real reality, and the environment can be as realistic as real reality. And so we'll be routinely able to change our bodies very quickly, as well as our environments, in virtual reality, but it will feel very real. We'll ultimately be able to do that with real reality too, like self-organizing swarms of nanobots that can link themselves up into a virtual body. If we had radical life extension only, we would get profoundly bored. We'd have a profound existential ennui, running out of things to do and new ideas. But that's not what's going to happen. In addition to radical life extension, we're going to have radical life expansion. We're going to have millions of virtual environments to explore. We're going to literally expand our brains. Right now, we only have 300 million pattern recognizers organized in a grand hierarchy that we create ourselves in our neocortex. But we can make that 300 billion or 300 trillion. We can expand it. The last time we expanded it with the frontal cortex, we created language and art and science. Just think of the qualitative leaps that we can't even imagine today. When we expand our neocortex again, we'll be thinking grander, deeper, more hierarchical thoughts than ever before, creating whole new institutions like art and science that we could not articulate. So we're not going to get bored. If that weren't the case, then I think, living for hundreds, thousands of years would be a profound philosophical nightmare. But instead, we're headed for radical life expansion.
So it seems like they're all saying just about the same thing, aren't they? We're going to be uploading our consciousness into other bodies or into the cloud or into holograms and living eternally, they call it. It's non-biological existence. Wasn't it interesting too how sad, how he said it would be a nightmare to live on with radical life extension in our current bodies without being able to expand into all sort of new forms of art and science and universes and stuff like that. So that's his view of life, is that if it went on for a long time, it would be a nightmare, he called it. You'd be so bored. God wanted us to live on, right? Not to die. Before the flood, they lived for 900 years. And so anyway, just a little modification of what he shared there, that life is to be embraced, is something God has given to us as a gift to serve him, to grow. And that's not something to be lamented. But here's another kind of like weird view of what that is like and how they're kind of putting this out for people to experience this thing of when you die, you're living on and your consciousness is perceiving these things. So you can contact the living people. And notice the farce of this is that you're actually perceiving this and conscious of this. No, this is just a computer running a program based on data from your life that you've input into the system through your, expressions of everything that's recorded, and everything's online. And so they have tons of data. And in the future, they'll have even better supercomputers to identify and organize and perceive what that data means, and then create this avatar, as Kurzweil called it. And so it's not real. Obviously, you're not there after death, but people are starting to think that is them, and that I'll be able to contact my loved ones, my living loved ones. And so many deceptions wrapped around within this, as you know about, with regard to spiritualism. But they call it post-biological life. Now, let that phrase percolate for just a moment. Ponder that. Critique that. Post-biological life. Well, post-biological life is a post-biological lie, and here's why. I'm sure you thought of it already. What does biological mean? Biology is the study of living organisms. And what is life? Living organisms, matter and energy. Consciousness is derived within that. Life, existence, is necessarily, by definition, biological. There is no such thing as post-biological life. You could say there's post-biological data, but biology itself is the definition of life. So it's like saying post-life life. Well, there's no life if there's not life, right? It's a contradiction of terms. But it started by them saying human life is not sacred. So they demean the human. They demean the unborn. They talk about life as if it's a nightmare. And they say, well, we're just evolved animals and we're just matter and energy. We are not spiritual beings. We are not a living soul. So, hey, why can't silicon be a life? Why not? Here's what Kurzweil says about that, about how he could potentially bring his own father back from the videos and information they have of his life.
Do you think you can bring back your father in a way that he would have continuity of consciousness?
I've got, in fact, hundreds of boxes of documents and recordings and movies and photographs, and I'm in the process of digitizing all that. And actually a very good way to express all of this documentation I have of my father, who's a musician. I have all of his music, I have all of his letters, I have movies and other artifacts, would be to create an avatar that an AI would create that would be as much like my father as possible given the information we have about him, and including possibly his DNA. That person would be very much like my father, and you could argue that he would be more like my father than my father would be had he been alive now, which he would be close to 100, so it's possible he could be alive, but he wouldn't be very similar to the way he was when he was 58 and died, over 40 years ago.
So you have counterfeit resurrection now. Immortality. What does this sound like? Sounds like the devil himself. AI to bring dead back to life with human replicas in shock new 3D technology. And then, hey, we can have dead musicians and entertainers come back in holographic form. They actually did this. There's a Whitney Houston, it's just from video at this point, but she's brought back to life to perform her concerts. For God doth know that in the day that ye eat thereof, your eyes shall be opened, and ye shall be as gods, knowing good and evil. You will be like God. I will ascend above the heights of the clouds. I will be like the Most High, said Lucifer in heaven. So when we acquire the ability to grant unto ourselves immortality, to raise the dead, and merge our living minds in the moment with the non-biological thinking and the group collective cloud mind, we become gods, said Harari. And Kurzweil also said it.